You're watching Co-op for Two. I'm Jesse. I'm here today with Greg.
Thanks for having me on your channel.
And today we're going to have a discussion, a sort of general discussion of difficulty levels, but focused on making a decision about whether we're going to play Seventh Continent on an easier mode, because we're in the middle of our playthrough. We've played about 6-7 hours.
I think it's probably closer to 8.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
And we're about to die.
Yeah, so just a quick synopsis of where we're at. Maybe it's good. So, you know, for those who are not familiar with Seventh Continent, it's a very long game. You know, we've played games, I don't know, what, 10, 15 hours? We're about 8 hours into this one. We played
this one, yeah.
This particular one, we're about, just in general, I think it could easily be 15 hours. We're 8 hours in. It looks like it could be another 8 hours. This is the second time we're playing through this particular curse. So think of the curses as scenarios, right? So we're in a specific scenario that we've gotten 8 hours in, which is where we died the last time we played this. And now we have, which looks likely to be possibly 8 hours, maybe not, maybe only 4 hours, but whatever it is, if it's 12 hours, it's a very considerable length of time.
If what's 12 hours?
If the final game total.
Oh, yeah. So we have to make a decision about that. So I want to start with looking at the difficulty or the different ways of playing Seventh Continent, and then maybe we'll divert into our general thoughts on difficulty levels in games.
If I can just quickly point out, so for those who are not familiar or maybe have forgotten, in Seventh Continent, it's sort of like going away while you're spending your cards, which is sort of your life total, and then when you get through that, you don't die. You just take the cards that were your life, basically, and you shuffle them together. And in there is going to be a number of curses. In this one, I think we have 5, let's say. And then what you do is when you do an action, you'll discard cards from the top, and if you happen to get a curse, it's just sudden death. So you're kind of playing, what I think the best way to describe it, I described before, is sort of like you're playing Russian roulette. You're just spinning the chamber, click, okay, keep going, spinning, and so for 4 hours of that is pretty crazy.
Yeah, we're at the stage where we're in trouble for food, and we could get out of it, but that's good. You've done the mechanic, so we've got a deck now that as soon as we draw from, we could die instantly like that. Okay.
It reminds me of so what Jesse had said off camera before we started this. He said, you know, we said, well, you know, it's not likely we would find more food, kill something, make a fire, eat it, all of those things before we die. So it was probably, and Jesse said we could die just by walking to the next tile.
Yeah.
So, which is true, and it reminded me actually. So, movie quote. We always have to talk about movies, so I think it's a good time to interject about. There's a line in Fight Club. He said, on a long enough timeline, everyone's survivability rate drops to 0.
That's right.
Which I think is very.
Does he say that on the plane when he's explaining?
He does. He says it a number of times. It's sort of a running thing, and they say it in the book and stuff like that too. But in this game, that's really you just can't survive that long.
Yeah.
Eventually, you'll do that.
And we don't like doing ad hoc post fixes. That's why we've sort of paused. Now we're having this discussion so that when we return, if we die, we won't feel like we're cheating.
And we're referencing our playthrough, which is you know, you said 7 hours in or whatever. So if you want to watch that, you've now had the ending, the middle ending or whatever spoiled for you.
This is the middle point.
That
That's true. That's true.
The quest stands on the edge of a knife.
Okay, so let's look at what we've got here. So what we're looking at here is on our left is base Seventh Continent, their first Kickstarter. They introduced these 2 cards.
So these are the 2 things you can do.
These are the 2 mode changes you can make for the base, and that these came with the second Kickstarter.
This is going to be a spoiler for me. This is my hot takes on this.
That's right. Okay, so the first one is hard mode. If the game isn't hard enough for you, you can add a 650.
Okay.
So 650 basically has some flavor text, and then it just says any action that would require at least 1 success now requires 1 additional success.
Okay, so if you needed 3, you now need 4.
No. Only if... Oh, yeah, at least 1 success. Yes, if you needed 3.
So it just...
Which is a big difference. One little extra
huge.
success
Yeah,
is
because I don't
pretty
feel
huge.
like in the game in general, like, all it is so you can really pass any test that you want.
Most that aren't locked.
That aren't locked, right?
Some are locked.
By spending your life essence,
That's
but
right.
like, for lack of a better term. But I mean, obviously you can't do that long, because you'll die.
Right. And then the hard ones sometimes the hard ones seem like
very difficult.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's it. You just put this in your satchel and you play with that rule. So we don't want that.
Would ever play that?
I don't know why you would
like. It doesn't. I mean, the game's already long enough, and all you're doing is increasing the likelihood that you're going to have to stop and set up and play another 8 hours or 10 hours or whatever.
Okay, so here is the easier mode or easy mode.
This one, that's kind of cool. It's like a little.
It's a little relic.
Yeah.
Okay, so you start with this.
Why don't you put it up a little bit?
Sure. Oh yes, good. Thanks. Okay, you start with this, and basically what it says is, if you lose the game, you banish this. So it's a one-time use, and you just shuffle all the cards in the discard back into your action deck and continue. So it's like a one extra life. But that's it. Then you lose it, and if you die again, you die again. That's easy mode.
You want my reaction to that?
Yes. What is your reaction to that?
Well, I mean, so I don't want to get in the rabbit hole of like a conversation about how I feel about Seventh Continent, its strengths, its weaknesses.
Yeah, we'll get to
that. That's a whole other discussion that we'll do. You can look for our review discussion. But I do think, to keep things briefer, like the game is, the larger strength of the game is its narrative, right? And I mean, the tactical choices you make to the game, like, sure, a good player will maybe survive where a bad player won't. I mean, there is some luck in the game, depending on what you find and what kind of trials and things that you have to face. But most of the game is really story-based. So, I mean, the fact that you have, on a purely thematic level, you have like this relic that you're like, we're like about to die, and you like scoop out like, I mean, you think of most, I mean, I'm thinking Lord of the Rings because I made a Lord of the Rings quote a moment ago where like, it's like, characters will have some, Frodo has his, has the gift from Galadriel and holds it up against the Shelob, and, like there's those moments of like, and, there's like, where they like, take this, it's dangerous to go alone, take this. I mean, there's like these moments when like, all seems lost, but you remember you have this item that it was gifted to you, or somebody swoops in and saves you or something. So, that's kind of a trope, I guess, right? Like that you kind of see. So I guess thematically, this is a much easier pill to swallow because it's a major relic.
Well, yeah, that's a good point. I mean, it's not just thematically, like, but this is such a beautiful system. The fact that they're like, you want to play easy mode, take this card. It just says, and the instructions in the rules is one line. You want to play easy mode, take card 777. And yeah, it feels like it's part of the game. It doesn't feel like you have to remember some extra weird rule. It's just this thing.
It's pretty, I mean, just all it is basically like, here's your one-up mushroom, basically.
That's right.
You don't
life.
Die.
Now, as far as like playing with it, like I know both of us, and this gets to the general discussion, and maybe we'll talk about that. But if we weren't playing this, if we weren't playing this game for the second time, this curse, we're playing this curse for the second time. If we were playing it only the first time, and maybe if it was our first, like if it was our first playthrough of the game, I would be inclined to just say, well, let's just die and restart. Like, let's not cheat. I mean, all of these easier modes all have this nag. Like, it gives you a little bit of a pit in your stomach. Like, I want to play it the normal way.
Yeah, well, that's kind of touching on our
yeah. Okay, so I don't want to go there yet. I don't want to go there yet.
Sure. But psychologically, you don't want to take.
Right.
You don't want to take that. You want to just be. You want to win the game.
But for this, I mean, we're playing it for the second time. And it feels like at this point in this, this happens with all the story games. Like there becomes a point when you replay it that you're like, I've already done this. I now have to spend some time. It's like playing a level again on a video game. I just have to do the work to get back to the good stuff. And for a game that's this long, like I don't want to spend another 5 hours just going through the rote actions to get back where we were.
Well, I mean, part of the thing that I like about the game, and this is again kind of bleeding into our review discussion, is that we've kind of started trying to keep a map of like where we've been, and it feels kind of cool. It feels like, well, I'm becoming a more seasoned explorer, adventurer, whatever, and you're getting more experience doing this, and you have your map, and you remember where you went, and you, oh, I know there's some hunting over here, and that's dangerous, don't go over there, and you know, and that's kind of, it's thematic, and it's cool, and it's just born of experience playing the game.
And in fairness to the game, if you did have to replay it, you would be much more efficient about going exactly where you need to go. You don't think so?
So I had mentioned to you in one of the rare times I answered an email.
If you guys only knew. What is the ratio to number of emails I send and what I get back?
I think you could just say word count. I mean, I think
it's like 1,000 to 1. 1,000 words go for 1 word.
Let's say 500.
Really? Okay.
Maybe. So I had mentioned to you that like the problem with playing through this again, now I had said, well, you know, would we be able to do it quicker? Would we be able to do it more efficiently? Of course we would, because we wouldn't have to meander around. We had forgotten, there was a long space of time.
It's like 6 months.
And I remember I'm like more longer than that, because the pandemic was, you know, good. So, you know, we meandered. I remembered vaguely some vagaries about it, but we went in a few different directions we didn't need to go. But here's the thing of it, is that this particular curse or quest or scenario, you know, it's called a curse, demands that you collect a number of experience points. So if we had only gone from point A to point B much more efficiently, we would not get the experience points that we needed. And in that way, I don't know if we could do it any faster.
Well, that's a good point. Although we don't know, but maybe if we would figure out where to get experience points, maybe.
Yeah, but a lot of the things that we got experience points, if my memory serves, were sort of, there were some random events that happened. And, you know, there's some things that happen that you're not entirely...
Now I'm starting to think that duck of yours in the egg, maybe he's got some experience to give us.
Well...
Anyway, but yes.
Yeah. So I mean, I think that there is a certain amount of that. This particular curse, and it may be the case that other curses are not like that. I don't know. I can't remember, really. It's amazing how much of it you forget. But, you know, there is a real sense of like, well, I mean, do we just... I mean... So I talked about thematically, and this for just mechanically, or as you were saying, just doing those rote actions again. It's just like, well, I mean, I could do that, but is that enjoyable? And I mean, that's a real balance, right, in terms of a difficulty.
So I'm inclined to suggest that we play that way with our play. The fact that we're filming it also adds an extra little reason not to want to go. Restart over just to give the people watching like a more satisfying ending.
Well, here's something. Now, I don't want to give a spoiler away, I guess, but I'm gonna about our playthrough, and this isn't really a story spoiler. You know, it's just part of the game. We went hunting, and we encountered a bear, and you know, we used a lot of stuff. We had hedged our bets or whatever. We had done whatever we could, but we were fairly sure that we would survive or we would succeed. And we just happened to draw like a number of blank cards. It was crazy. I mean, the odds was I've never seen that happen. Yeah. And so what happened was we should have been able to kill that bear, eat him, and we would have been totally fine because we had built a fire. We were going to cook that food, eat it. And what actually happened was he injured us. We lost. We didn't get the food, and we took I think maybe we took some more damage. I can't remember now. This is like 2 weeks later or something, or a week and a half later. And essentially, like that twist of luck, which was an absurd thing to happen. We had gotten pretty lucky through the game. I mean, that could have made all the difference. So.
But I think you've touched on something that's so important for this, though. If we end it, let's say we die. Like we think we're gonna die. Okay, we die. You're not gonna.
I should have.
Okay, so. Normally, if I use the phrase "let's say this,"
I say the whole thing.
Right. Okay. Anyway,
I got distracted. Okay. I smelled wood smoke. I like my jacket that I was wearing. I went out for a wood fire, and like it's still everything I touched.
Okay, but I don't want to forget this. This is such an important point. If we ended that and we were like, we don't know why we lost. We should have done better. Then you could really make a case for don't cheat. Replay it and learn and get better. Well, whatever. Okay, but I think one of the reasons it's so compelling to sort of continue to use something like this is because where we left off, we made two serious mistakes. Two. You just made me think of another one, but we made two serious ones that we've now learned. No, not rules mistakes, not rules mistakes, but two strategic mistakes that we've learned. So like
we knew them already. We forgot them.
Well, I know one of them, but you just made me think of another one. Okay. So I'm going to let you say what the one. But my point is that like I feel like we shouldn't have to start over from scratch to learn those lessons because we've learned them. Like we just had forgotten them, or it was getting after 8 hours, we were getting tired. So that's partly why I feel more comfortable with taking something like this, because I feel like we know where we slipped up. Now, one of the ways we slipped up was
tell the one, since
you tell the one, and then I'll tell you the one I just realized.
Okay, so just to keep it a little more brief, it's just, you know, we're supposed to shuffle in our hunting when we break. You wipe the map. There's just a rules function where you wipe the map if you run out of space. And we did this a few times and stopped the camera. We wiped it so it would be more enjoyable to watch. But we'd forgotten that you're supposed to be able to shuffle in all these food cards and things. And then when we went hunting again, it was like way more difficult.
Yeah, all the food was gone in our thing.
And we had forgotten. And so that was just between kind of like, it had been a while since we played, we're filming, we're concentrating on things that like aren't necessarily the game, and you know, you just only have so much bandwidth, and I think that like we just sort of,
and it's a very odd but cool strategic decision involved in saving the game, and you don't think about it, but it is a real strategic decision. If we had rewound and thought about it, okay, we're about to die, we're doing this hunting, it's so important that we get good food, then maybe we should have said, okay, let's save right now. Everything goes in there. We have more food. I mean, now there's an so the other thing that this is going to give away, but we've talked about it. Sort of that last where we failed. We failed. We did this hunting. We had to kill the bear. Okay, and we drew 3 blanks, 3 curses. Okay. Now that deck that we drew from was tiny. Most of it was in the discard. We could have and should have known that the deck we were drawing from was heavily, heavily stacked against us.
Well, I think, I'm just
saying, like, if you wanted to get strategically really good at this game, that would have been a thing we could have looked at and said, that deck is 50% curse cards. We're likely to.
Yeah, I mean, I know that's something that you can do generally. I also think that like after a while, I mean, you're in like
we don't play that.
The room is like hotter than Hades. You're just starting to get frazzled, and I think sure what might be done in a shorter game, you might not mind.
My only point was that like I don't feel like we should play it again from the beginning of the thing, because there are things we have to learn so we don't make those mistakes. From like a game mechanics
standpoint, and look, I have spray paint on my hand, and for otherwise, I would say that we should definitely use this. Now, I'm eager to hear.
Okay.
And I think we're in agreement. Yeah.
Yeah. So we're gonna do this.
If you want to see, so you're going to show this off, and then we'll do more of a general discussion.
And then, at some point, you can watch our playthrough of 7th Continent continue.
So
okay. So with the second Kickstarter, they introduced a couple things. One you're going to hate, but I thought we'd take a look at it to see what it looks like.
Do you hate it?
Yeah, I hate it. Okay. There's a trader mechanic that you can now play with. If you want to take your 8-hour 7th Continent game and make it end with someone stabbing you in the back, literally.
Truly want to lose friends.
So there's 2 basic cards. Yeah. Let's take a look at them. There's 2 basic cards. So everyone, the way it would work was if you want to play with the trader mechanic, everyone gets a card. And they all just say, everyone takes one at the beginning, and they suggest you keep your hand hidden, your whole hand hidden when you play this way. Okay, but there's 2 basic types. There's no one can be trusted, and the continent demands sacrifice. And they're all, like, each version of the no one can be trusted is slightly different, and each version of the continent demands sacrifice is different.
Of course, like
we hate this. We would never play with this.
When we're talking these discussions, it's like which rabbit holes do we like try to stay away from, right? And one of them is like this need to always make a trader in a game, And I remember when I first started gaming, I was like, oh wow, that's such a neat idea. And I think it's an attractive one for people that don't game a lot. I'm not saying that if you're an avid gamer or a real gamer, you're not going to like that mechanic. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying like I think. For non-gamers, it's a very attractive thing. It's you're like, oh, that's so cool. Want to use a trader or whatever. But in game terms, like they really try to shoehorn it into a lot
Well,
of things.
and we know what's made that so bad. What's caused these
Kickstarter? Yeah. Okay, which this is a Kickstarter.
It's Kickstarter stretch goal.
Okay, so, but this actually, so I can't
Thematically it works.
Thematically, so I'm actually kind of thinking like, I'm almost a little bit the opposite as you. So for two players, which is what we do, it's not gonna work, right? But I think like if you played a shorter curse, one that was like only 6 hours or something like that, well, how much? Well,
a shorter curse, 6 hours.
Well, I mean, I kind of remember the first curse being only like 4 or 5 hours. So I mean, that's
no.
not too, you don't.
Oh,
think so?
the tutorial
the
curse.
Tutorial curse. I think actually, if you played the tutorial curse and you had like 4 or 5 people and you knew one of you get to this island and one of you is not to be trusted, that's kind of cool. I think that might be kind of fun.
Terrible. Let me tell you. Let me
I'm just saying I'd be willing to try it. And well,
let me remind you why it would be so crazy. First of all, when you play, most of the time you're doing things together. So you're taking one turn, you're doing your thing. If you've got someone who's like, my goal is not to win the curse, can you imagine 6 hours and the only job of that person is to make it so you don't succeed?
Yeah.
It's just insanity.
Yeah, I don't know. So yeah.
one of them just, if you get this, no one can be trusted. Yeah. There's 4 of them. Your only thing is watch out for someone who might try to kill you. So they don't do anything. But the other card is you have to murder someone at the end of the game.
I mean, so player elimination in a 6-hour game is a terrible idea. I mean, you're asking. These are hot takes. Okay,
yeah.
Like I didn't realize there was a trader mechanic. This is a complete hot take. And I do think story-wise, if it was a shorter curse, or maybe if there was like some custom curse, or maybe they released a curse that was like, where one of you was trying to kill and eat the other one or something, like that'd be kind of neat story-wise. But as I think about it more, I mean, like
if the special things were like, oh, if you get this thing in addition, then you win. No, this guy, you get this. Your job is to prevent the other people from ever solving it.
I'm glad you sleeve these. You're never gonna use those.
Those are terrible.
Okay,
so what's absolutely terrible?
So I mean,
never.
I mean, but just given the story nature of the game, you could see why that.
Well, thematically, it makes sense. Like you're going paranoid.
Yeah, I mean, like, but even if like you go on an expedition, there's going to be people in there that just don't agree on, or the stress gets to them and they break. So that's kind of cool.
I'll give you a better way you could thematically do that. That would be more enjoyable. Like the idea of giving someone a card that says, for this 6 hours, you have to prevent the people from solving it makes no sense. But maybe like if you wanted to thematically have fun and have a story, at the end of your games, you could make the trader mechanic be like, after the team gets the curse, everyone draws a card, which gives you like one turn, one action to sabotage or do something to claim the victory from the jaws.
Actually, that would be kind of thematic. You could have like you take the thing out and it's like, I'm gonna make a Lord of the Rings reference, but it's like the one ring where it's like everybody's like covetous, like immediately covetous of this thing, where it's like, everybody looks at it and they're like, gold, whatever it is, they get kind of mad about it, You could even do something as simple as like everybody's starving and there's like, there's like a leg of lamb there.
Something that play the game normally as a team, and then if you had some extra little thing at the end where you could give people a chance to stab each other for one turn.
They already have this in the game somewhat, where they have this paranoid thing, right? Which is kind of a cool, that's a way to show mistrust or among people.
Yeah.
All right. What's
okay? So then with the second Kickstarter, in addition to that, they released this mode. I think this is Prodigy mode. If you want to make the game a little easier, you shuffle these in. There's 5 of them. They're all the same. And you'll notice they've got a 6 star and 2 halves, and they let you decrease the number of cards you have to draw for a test by 3. And you just shuffle.
7 on there as well.
That's right. And there's 5 more good cards. So they basically say you just shuffle these in if you want to make the game a little easier. Well, this is a more traditional easy mode.
It increases the length of the game, right? Because the deck expands, which means that it increases the likelihood of success. It's another thing, right?
Now, how would you feel about playing with those?
I don't want to play with them.
Well, see, that's interesting. Like, this is the psychological response where that feels like cheating a little bit. You're making the game easy. It's interesting that we will play with one, but the easy mode.
Can we put a pin in that and discuss it with our with our general discussion
Sure.
about difficulty?
Sure.
So
Okay, we're
maybe
gonna
go
put
over
that in.
these and then we'll... Is that okay?
Sure. Okay, so this is the last mode, and this is actually clever and interesting. So the last mode they added is called Immortal Mode. And you can guess how that basically works. It's basically, it's like the other one.
It's like the Highlander mode.
When you die, you take a 699. Now notice this doesn't get banished. So this, you'll never die in this mode. But
So this is like a story, basically. You're just experiencing the story.
well, that's a very good way to say it, because look what it says. If you lose the game, take a 699. Now let's take a look at what the 699 card says. It's got some flavor text. We
Spoiler.
won't read that. But you take this card, and it tells you lose all your experience, right? Shuffle the cards back in, just like the other one. And then it's got something interesting. It tells you to throw one of these green cards away. It's got a list of them. Now, what you don't see from here, because they're shuffled into the box, is with this little stretch goal, is a set of 11 gold cards. And the gold cards match these numbers. So basically what this does is it adds a narrative element. Every time you die, you take one of these green cards, which is like a story ending, a way the quests can end or things that happen, and you're taking the green one out so that you will now hit the yellow card. So basically you get, your story's going to change. Each time you use this, you risk one of the story endings being like a little cheat ending.
So, I mean, the likelihood that you would have seen all of these anyway is like a bit...
Well, it's true. I'm not sure what each of these does, but each time you do this, at least narratively, each time you save yourself using this medallion, you risk a little story twist happening when you get to the end of your adventure.
You know what this thing immediately makes me think of as a hot take? So this is again a hot take. Like, to me, I look at that and I think like, that means more work pulling cards. You know, like there's always like an hour of like sorting the cards back out at the end and everything.
But it's clever. Thematically, narratively, it's clever.
To me, that's too powerful anyway, by the way. I mean, it's like, you're basically taking away any So basically, in the game, there would be no reason to just not explore or do everything.
Yeah, it changes the game.
It's no
completely.
longer
You
really
didn't care
a game.
about
I mean,
dying.
the game it's no longer a game. Now it's just, you could just achieve any goal you want to at any moment. Just there's no, I don't like the slippery slope argument, but it kind of becomes like.
No, I agree with you.
You don't even need to do
the tension. The tension.
Yeah, you don't do the action of like, let's discard cards. No, it doesn't matter. You're gonna win anyway.
I do agree. But I love, like, you do have two choices here. This is if you want to preserve all the normal rule of the game and keep all the tension because you only get one shot at it. This is if you want to have a narrative story exploration and you don't want to worry about dying. You take this and it does affect your story. I mean, I think it's clever, it's cool, but it's not that compelling.
Yeah, I have heard some people that were frustrated with the game mechanics and they decided just to like explore and look around, and this gives you sort of a legitimate way to do it, you know, like a rules way to do it. I think that is once you take that danger or the gaminess out of it, it sort of loses something, I think.
Well, I do agree.
It's like playing poker. You know, you're like nervous about. I mean, it doesn't matter. Like if you know, I used to have a regular night. My friends and I for years played Monday Night Poker. We'd just throw in $10, and sometimes you win, sometimes you know. But it's like, you know, there has to be at least some tension there, right? Once you take the money out of poker, poker just falls apart as a game because everybody just goes all in all the time, goes to the end. Why wouldn't you? You have nothing to lose, right? So
I agree with you in general. I would just put this little caveat though. If you're playing the game for story and narrative, then there is a risk and a cost involved. Because when you die, you're losing the story you at least could be. You're risking losing the satisfying story end that you're traveling for.
But again, like you could play this entire game and never have gotten any of those. I don't know. So and maybe those are cards that you're frequently likely to get with certain events or something. I don't know, but
well, that's a good point. That would be disappointing if you died 5 times and used it and then didn't affect the outcome of your story.
Yeah, so that's the uncertainty there is what kind of makes it. So that's but that's interesting for those people that want to just kind of travel around and see what's to be seen. But I think you are losing something. I think for me personally, just making a hot take on this is that to me, just in terms of the time it takes to play the game, and the fact that like one unlucky turn really can like really upset the whole game on you. I think that like this is a good way to go.
Yeah,
I mean, because we've played this. We're in our third curse. We did the intro curse, which we won. We did the second curse, which we played twice, and we won the second time. And then this is the third curse that we're on, and we've played it one time through, and gotten quite far, and then died from hunger, and then the same thing here. Right. I mean, I also think like a lot of people haven't understood the idea that you have to kind of continually hunt and eat to keep going, and
you would be missing out a lot if you didn't really try to survive the game. Yeah, if you did something like this, you would be missing out a lot.
So
so there you go. There's
go into
7th continent.